Hello and welcome to Foundations Unit 5. Our topic for today is Jesus is building his church. The first question that I want to look at is, what is the church? Now, as always, our reference point is the Bible, and particularly in this case we're going to look at what Jesus says about the church. He only actually mentions the church twice in the New Testament, so we're going to look at both instances and see what it tells us about what the church is. We'll find the first instance in Matthew chapter 16. I'll read it. Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Well, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it." Now, just like today, if you ask people who is Jesus, you'll have a variety of responses. He's a great teacher, he's an inspiring leader, he's a madman, he's a prophet. But Peter had a different response. Peter said, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus didn't say to him, "Oh, you're very clever, Peter, well done." He actually said, "No, Peter, that's been revealed to you by my Father in heaven." And that is the qualification for someone who's in the church. A confession of faith that says Jesus is the Son of the living God. So, everyone who makes that confession are the people that Jesus is making his church out of. These people who have the same confession of faith, Jesus is the Son of the living God, they are the ones in the church. Now, that makes the church, first of all, very inclusive, because anyone who makes that confession of faith, anyone who says Jesus is the Son of God, then they're in the church. There is no barrier to coming into the church. That means the church is full of all sorts of people, clever, uneducated, rich, poor, people of all ethnicities, people that speak different languages, men, women, old, young, all are in the church. There is no barrier to anybody entering the church. But because that's the only requirement, it means that the church is also quite exclusive. So, for example, it's no point in saying, "Oh, I was born in a Christian country, therefore I'm a Christian." Doesn't work. Or, "My parents were Christians, so I am." Or even, "Well, I attend a church on Sundays, so I'm a Christian." The requirement to be in the church is that you accept Jesus as Lord and Saviour. Now, I'm going to stop there for a moment and just do a little experiment with you. I hope this is okay. You know that one where someone says a word and you have to kind of picture the first thing that comes into your mind? So that's what we're going to do. And but I want you to put yourself in the place of wherever you were before you got involved in Christianity. Maybe before you ever came to Alpha or got involved with other Christians. Maybe back a few months, maybe back a few years for some of you. Put yourself in that position and tell me what comes into your mind when I say the word church. Okay, hold that one for a moment. Now, fast forward to right now. We're on a Zoom call in a Foundations course, you're as you are today, you're thinking as in the present right now, what comes into your mind when I say the word church? Now, I'd hazard a guess that for many of you, there were two different answers there. The first time, probably what came into your mind was a building, maybe made out of stone or brick, perhaps with a steeple, maybe stained glass windows, but you probably thought of a building. Second time, with a bit more knowledge of what the church is like, you probably thought of people. Now, I hope that from now on we can stick with that second picture. Many people in society refer to the church as a building. That church over there looking at a building. Whereas the original meaning of the word church in the New Testament was an assembly of people. Perhaps best explained as an assembly of people together with a purpose. And it's people that we're talking about when we talk about the church. Okay, that first bit gives you the big picture of the church. Anyone who believes in Jesus is a member of the church. So that means across Teesside there's probably thousands of people in Jesus's church. The second time that Jesus mentions the word church in the Bible, he's looking up close and personal. He's looking at the very intimate details of the church rather than the big picture we've just looked at. Now, the second mention is in Matthew chapter 18, and I'll read that right now. If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. What is clear from this passage is that Jesus expected people in the church to be able to sort out their differences. They needed to get on together almost as people do in a family. Now, I have 3 children. When they're adults now, but when they were young, I seemed to spend an inordinate amount of time sorting out disagreements. You know how it goes? Well, she did this. Yeah, but she said this to me, etc., etc. Am I the only one that has had to deal with that? The point is that people inevitably create disagreements, particularly when they live in close proximity, like a family. When you're shoulder to shoulder, you rub up against each other, you kind of work at tasks together. There's a closeness that is going to inevitably cause disagreements. Now, the implication from what Jesus is saying here is that Christians would live close with one another. Christians would live almost like a family. Listen to what Paul says about it. Paul says, "Let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the household of believers." Interesting use of the word there, isn't it? Household of believers. Now, Paul could have said the group of believers or the Christians in your town, but he's referring to a household. He's expecting that Christians would live like a family. And Jesus implied the same thing in what he said. He expects us to behave like a family. Now, let's imagine that there's maybe 10,000 Christians across Teesside. I can't live in a family relationship with all of them. So, how does that work out in the church? Let me give you an example. Within the local church, and this is how it works in Jubilee Church in Teesside, which I'm a member of, we have community groups. Community groups are about 10 to 12 people. We meet regularly, mostly weekly, usually in someone's home, and we have a close relationship, rather like a family. We need to be able to get on. We meet up and know one another. Maybe we meet up outside of that family group. We know how each other is doing and able to give help when needed. When you live close to one another, that's when occasionally you need to sort out differences. And that's what Jesus was talking about in the passage in Matthew. Jesus expects there to be a family aspect to church life. You need to be in the family, and belonging to the local church is how Christians stay growing and effective.